Om Shri Sairam. We start today's session with 3 Omkars. Om. Om Shri Sairam. Offering a loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, respected elders, brothers and sisters, Sairam to all of you. On this holy occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, we have an online Samarpan organized by the Sai students from Mumbai. And we are blessed to have Dr. Amey Deshpande, who will be sharing his thoughts with us. A brief introduction to Dr. Amey Deshpande. Dr. Amey Deshpande hails from Maharashtra and was a student of the Sri Satya Sai School, Prashantinilayam, between 1990 to 1993. He acquired his BCom degree from Bangalore University in the year 2000. He then pursued his chartered accountancy in Bangalore between 2000 to 2003. During this period, he also worked with Hewlett-Packard and was a member of the Bangalore Sevadal and the Brindavan Bhajan group between the years 1999 to 2003. Brother Amey then enrolled for the MBA Finance program at the Sri Satya Sai Institute of High Learning in 2003. Thereafter, at Bhagwan's behest, he registered for the MPhil program in 2006 and was awarded the gold medal in 2007 for distinction in MPhil. He completed his doctoral studies in 2016 in corporate strategy from the Department of Management and Commerce, Prashantinilayam. Since his MBA days, Brother Amey has been a member of the Prashanti Bhajan group and has sung in the divine presence in the music programs that were put up by the students. Besides singing, his interests also lie in playing tabla, dholak and other percussion instruments. He has also sung and played the percussion in Bhavanjali and Nada Brahmam series of Sai Bhajans. Brother Amey is a sought-after speaker, as all of us know, and he was blessed to speak in the presence of Bhagwan, divine presence of Bhagwan, on several occasions. He has also directed and acted in the dramas put up by Swami students in the direct divine presence at Prashantinilayam for several years. Currently, he serves as a resident fellow in the newly formed Sri Satya Sai Center for Human Values. This center has been started under the auspices of Sri Satya Sai Central Trust and has been mandated to conduct research and training in the field of human values. Brother Amey will share his thoughts with us today on the subject Watch, W-A-T-C-H, as elaborated by Bhagwan. Over to you, Brother Amey.
Offering our loving pranams at the divine lotus feet of our ever-present Swami and invoking his presence and his benediction on all of us. Most revered elders, dear brothers and sisters, a very warm and loving Sairam to all of you. And I take this opportunity to wish you all a very blessed and blissful Ganesh Chaturthi and this entire festival of Ganesha. In fact, this marks the beginning of this festival season that I guess ends with Bhagwan's birthday in November. So busy days ahead, blissful days ahead. And so wish you all wonderful health and prosperity in these specific times. Let me begin with a few lines of a very famous song, and then we will take this discussion ahead. I'm sure you will recognize these lines. They go something like this. है आँख वो जो शाम का दर्शन किया करें, है शीश जो प्रभु चरण में वंदन किया करे, बेकार वो मुख है, बेकार वो मुख है जो रहे व्यर्थ बातों में, मुख वो है जो साई नाम का सुमिरन किया करे। हीरे मोती से नहीं शोभा है हाथ की, हाथ वो जो भगवान का पूजन किया करे, मर कर भी अमर नाम उस जीव का जग में, प्रभु प्रेम में, साई प्रेम में बलिदान जो जीवन किया करें. So these immortal words are something that has always struck a chord in my heart, especially the last line which goes, मरकर भी अमर नाम उस जीव का जग में जो प्रभु प्रेम में बलिदान जो जीवन किया करे. When we dedicate our lives for the love of God, then we truly become immortal. And the reason why I choose these lines is because it is connected to this topic that we have chosen today for our discussion, which is this beautiful five-lettered word called watch. So let me just take you back to 1997. 1997 was a year which kind of heralded the dawning of a new era in what we called positive psychology. And I'm taking you a little detour before we come to Bhagwan. So, it marked the release of a book written by one Maester Eckhart Tolle. I'm sure you all recognize this name, Eckhart Tolle. And the book's name was The Power of Now, right? So this was in 1997, and it kind of, spawned an absolute revolution in the area of positive psychology, because this area, a new area called mindfulness, kind of was introduced. And today, if you look at the biggest universities like the Harvard or the Princeton, or you look at our own IIM Calcutta, everybody seems to have got onto this bandwagon of figuring out what is this mindfulness. Today you have number of courses in the UK, in the US. You have you have plethora of courses on just on mindfulness. The reason why I talk about this year 1997 is because exactly 30 years before 1997, in 1967, in a discourse, for the first time, Bhagwan introduced this word called watch. This word which has today become a buzzword, it is like a word that is used in all the top corporate honchos, especially people who are so stressed, with all the, their corporate life and success and all of that. All of them go to this Vipassana meditation, and they go to the Zen Buddhist monasteries. They go to the heights of the Himalayan caves and the mountains and the peaks, to find this mindfulness. It was in 1967 that Swami first time introduced to us this simple word called watch. And if all of mindfulness was kind of had to be summarized in one word, no, it is this simple word called watch. Obviously, we all know it is something that, as Balvika students, we have mugged up, right? Watch your words, watch your action, watch your thoughts, watch your character, watch your heart. And usually in our exams, Balvika's exams, we used to have match the following, W comes with what, and in our group 1 and in group 2, we used to have fill in the blanks, right? So I'm sure we all have heard this, but it is absolutely incredible. See, Swami's message, is like an onion. You can keep peeling off layer after layer, and you will only find more layers inside. Ultimately, when you peel off the entire onion, what is there inside? Nothing. Okay, so that is how Bhagwan's message is, because that nothingness, that is the ultimate reality. In fact, if I'm not joking about nothingness, because recently I was listening to a talk on Buddhism, and one of the great philosophers on Buddhism is the Andhra saint. His name was Nagarjuna. And his treatise on Buddhism talks about nothingness. In fact, one of the 4 Mahavakyas of Buddha was Shunyam Shunyam Sarvam Shunyam, Dukkham Dukkham Sarvam Dukkham. Kind of a bummer in a sense, Buddha was, because he said everything is Shunya. And so coming back to this, which is Swami's message of the word watch. And in fact, I happened to read, there's another beautiful discourse that I would urge everyone to read on this word, which was in fact given by Bhagwan in 1986, in the February, or I guess it's the March of 1986. You can check the Satya Sai Speaks. It's a beautiful discourse in which Swami, in fact, goes letter by letter, WATCH. Swami explains each one of them. It's a brilliant discourse on this topic. So, when I just think about this, when I was thinking about, watch, we often thought, okay, Swami, yeah, you know what, these are your usual buzzwords, TWA, thoughts, words, and deeds, and all of that. And in 1986 discourse, Swami makes an amazing, he says, this watch, the WATCH is exactly the 5 human values. Each human value associated with, for example, for words, it is Satya. Okay, so we have to speak the truth. Action is connected to Dharma. Okay, thoughts is connected to Shanti, because we in our thoughts is where we want peace, isn't it? And our character must be full of prema. Okay, and our heart must be have feelings of ahimsa. And I was kind of like bowled over. I like, Swami, this is amazing, right? How you manage? How did you get this? This anacronym, what is it called? Acronym, right? Called watch. So it's just brilliant how Swami connects all the 5 human values in that order to this. But today, what I would like to kind of discuss with you all is to go a little deeper into this definition of watch. So let me, this is something that one of the very senior doctors in the super specialty hospital, he shared with us. He is a US trained, one of the top cardiologists in the world. He comes from the Cleveland Clinic, which is like the destination for cardiologists. And so he was telling that the first time he came to Bhagavan, he came to Prashanthi Nilayam, and I think it was the month of August. And Swami would, typically sit outside with all the students around him after the evening rounds of interviews, and it would be a divine chit chat session. Swami would just come, and it'll be an absolutely informal session, which could go from what's up for dinner today. So Venkatachalam sir will be called, and from a brinjal vegetable onwards, right up to the ultimate bring joy to all. I don't know whether you know, but Swami used to love brinjal, and Swami used to say brinjal means bring joy to all. Okay, so for Swami it was bring joy to all. Of course, -1. I'm not a big fan of brinjal. So so coming back to this evening session, where it would be just amazing, everybody would be looking forward to what is Swami going to talk about. And typically, it would be a conversation between Anil Kumar sir and Swami. And in fact, all of those conversations have been captured in the book called Satyopanishad. So it was one of those evenings, and this doctor, he was watching Swami. And he was watching all the students who were seated around Swami. And the moment the interview room door opened and Swami walked out, okay, all the backs became straight, right? And all the hands kind of went like this. And, everybody's neck was craning. And the entire period of time that Swami was sitting on the chair, he noticed that every student's eye was absolutely focused on Swami. For example, if Swami turns around one side, all the boys turn around. If Swami if something, if a kerchief would drop from Swami's chair, 10 fellows would jump to, put that kerchief back. If, Swami is calling out to someone, the entire group of boys will look at whom Swami is calling, So it was like he felt that all the students were like mesmerized. They were hypnotized by the presence of Bhagwan. And as Swami got up and went inside, all the backs kind of drooped, and everybody then opens their books or whatever they were reading, and he was sharing with us this beautiful thought. He said, the way everybody was so attentive on every movement of Swami when he was sitting there, he said everybody was watching Swami. Please consider the word watch. So everybody was watching Swami while he was there, and then he he prolonged that example to tell that if Bhagwan is the indweller of our hearts, he's seated on the sofa of our hearts, can I be as attentive to him all the time, 24/7, knowing that he's the one who is seated in the sofa of my heart? And it really struck a chord that, yeah, if every one of us were to lead a life like that, in fact, Swami himself gives this example of a driver and a master. He says, typically there's a driver, a chauffeur, right? And then from the time he sees the master, his entire focus is on the master. He will like open the door, ensure that the master is seated. He goes and takes and he puts his belt, and he will drive as if like he knows that the master is watching from behind, and even the music that is played in the car will be something that the master likes, right? And he's absolutely focused on the road. And then Swami says that once he drops off the master, the cap comes off, the first button goes off, and then he will shift to the music that he likes, and he will put his hand on the window and he'll be looking all over the place. He says, Swami goes on to say that if we were to believe that Bhagwan is the master of this car called this body, and we are the drivers, can we pay attention to that master who is always seated with us? And that is where we need to watch the Bhagwan who is seated in the sofa of our hearts, right? I remember even as bhajan boys, as bhajan students, once the bhajan started and Swami came and took his position on the throne, right? I'm sure Brother Jai Shankar, Brother Siddharth, all of us would have experienced that. Like every second we will be watching Swami, because we had to literally see when Swami stops his talam, because the moment he stops the talam, the bhajan ends. And then, our watch, our gaze will be also on the feet, because once the feet kind of push back the footstool, it's time for arati, right? And so, just let us try and translate that into our day-to-day life, which is, if we believe that Swami is the indweller of our hearts, then we will always watch out for what he likes and what he doesn't, right? And if we can keep this mantra of the watch, that Swami is watching me all the time, absolutely, that's the best formula we can have for a successful life. In fact, the only difference between saints and us, just think about it, all the saints out there who have ever walked on earth, they had the same 24 hours that we had. They had the same problems that we had. Probably they didn't have COVID-19. They probably had COVID-1762 or whatever, right? There was some form of plague or malaria or typhoid or something, was always there. They had the same families that we have. They had the same societies that we had. And yet, their lives were very different from our lives. What differentiates them from us? The only thing that differentiates them from us is they had what is called constant integrated awareness. We have something called periodic integrated awareness. Okay, this is a term that I have coined. Okay, CIA, because I said, Swami, CIA is your term, but I am giving a new term to mankind, which is called PIA, because we just don't get that constancy. Our problem is we have just periodic integrated awareness. You go to a bhajan, there's a phenomenal singer singing. At that moment, tears start to roll down. We miss Swami and all of that. And at that moment, we feel that oneness with Bhagwan. And soon after that, if it's a bhajan that we don't like, or a singer that we don't like, or something that we don't, kind of the bhajan session gets over, and we go back straight into the samsara that we came from. And there goes, our constant integrated awareness for a toss. It's just thrown out of the window, right? So the only difference between them and us is their ability to watch for 24 hours and our inability to watch for 24 hours. So let's kind of, reflect a little bit on this watch. One beautiful way to watch is to merely look or watch Bhagwan's life. And I think this is one avatar, right? We are so lucky that he is somebody who allowed himself to be captured by technology, right? Unfortunately, we don't know what Rama or Krishna, or for that matter, even Shirdi Baba, right? We really don't know how he looked like, right? But We have today plenty and more of audio and video to know what Bhagwan looks like, how he spoke, how he kind of conducted himself in every situation in life. And therefore, the best way to start this watch process is to watch Bhagwan's life. And so let's look at each of these, watch your words, watch your actions, watch your thoughts, watch your character, and watch your heart. Looking at Bhagwan's words, Bhagwan's actions, Bhagwan's thoughts, Bhagwan's character, and Bhagwan's heart. And from that, we will be able to get some tips that we can implement in our own lives, to kind of start, I would say, mirroring the life of the Lord. So let's start with words. Let me take you back to the 1980s. This is something that happened to a very senior brother. Uh, while today the Prashanthi Nilayam and Puttaparthi that you all see is very, very different from what it was in the 80s. Of course, I'm not even talking about what it was in the 60s. So 60s would have been far more primitive than what it was in the 80s. But the reason I'm saying this is there were a lot of snakes around even in the 1980s. Like when we were in primary school, snakes were like our common companions. On the way from, especially I remember from the senior boys hostel to the school, we would often find at least monthly once or twice minimum. We will see a friend snake kind of walking across, probably going to his own school or whatever. So this was one of our brothers, a very senior brother. In fact, maybe I can even take his name because he has also spoken in this forum. His name is Dr. Sundar Iyer, a bhajan singer. And this is his incident. Pardon me, I've just lost power over here. So I just wait for power to come back. So he was telling that he was a champion snake catcher. So every time there was a snake in either in the hostel or in the grounds anywhere, he would be deputed to kind of go and catch the snake. So there was this one occasion when there was a snake, and so Sundarayar sir was called to in fact catch hold of the snake. And little did he know that this was a pretty poisonous one, and it was probably a young and pretty dynamic snake. It actually went and it bit him. Okay, and obviously it's a pretty poisonous one, and so he was rushed to hospital. And while he was being rushed to the hospital, somebody ran to Mandir to tell Bhagwan that this is what had happened. And Swami's reaction, to the whole episode, the moment they were told, Swami, snake has bit Sundarayar, and Swami's reaction, no, not snake, simply one mosquito has bit. Okay, and they were like, no, Swami, like, no, I mean, what do you tell now? Swami is like making a mosquito bite into, a snake bite into like a mosquito bite. And then Swami said, take him to hospital. Alreja is there and he knows what is to be done. And of course, in those days, from the village, scorpion bites and snake bites are pretty common. And so immediately the treatment was given. And, it was actually a pretty dangerous situation. If the poison was not removed in time, it could have been lethal. And so Dr. Alreja went and he reported back to Swami that Swami, your grace, everything has gone off well. And then, Sundarayar sir, after a couple of days, he came to Mandir, and Swami, started as usual telling everybody, this boy, snake bit him, but nothing happened. See, he's able to walk and all that. So kind of everybody was surprised because like that day when they told Swami, Swami said, no, not snake bite. It is nothing, some mosquito bite like that. And today Swami is like tom-tomming, showing him off to everybody. So in fact, he asked Swami, that Swami, like, that day you mentioned that it is not. And then Swami said, if I would have said that it is a snake bite, it would have actually been a snake bite. Because that is the power of the words of a pure person. Just the words of a pure person are so powerful that it can make things happen and it can make things not happen. And in fact, on one other occasion, Swami says, amongst all the senses in the body, the tongue is, there are, in fact, Swami said, there are only two senses which have got flaps. You know, one is the eyes and one is the mouth. No other sense, if you look at it, no other sense has got a flap. Our ears don't have flaps. Our nose doesn't have flaps. Skin, though, obviously it doesn't have. So Swami said, do you know why only these two senses have been given flaps? Because they have been given to exercise your control. Okay, because maximum input goes through our eyes and through our mouth. Okay, and therefore to exercise control, these flaps have been given. But he said, even amongst the eyes and the mouth, the more important one is this mouth, because it plays two purposes. One is it eats and the other it speaks. So there is an input and output. The eyes only input, all other senses are only input. Only the mouth has input as well as output. And he says, therefore the tongue is the most important sense of the entire body. And then Swami said, that's why Maya dances on the tongue of man. Swami says, Maya dances on the tongue of man because this is the only sense which has the ability to make truth into untruth and untruth into truth. See, every other sense that we have, it can only take in, and what it sees, what it hears, what it smells is the truth. Whereas the tongue has the ability to change, transform truth into untruth. Right? Whenever we speak lies, we know it is lies, but our tongue is kind of consciously converting something untruth or something truth into untruth. And he says, Swami said, therefore Maya dances on the tongue of man. And Swami uses the word nartaki. Maya is the nartaki on the jivha of Manava. And the only way to reduce the impact of this nartaki is to opposite kirtana, is to kind of make it ulta. The nartaki is ulta is kirtana. So only by the chanting of Lord's name that we can reduce the effect of the Maya on this tongue. How beautiful, isn't it? So words, they are so important. In fact, we know enough about words. They say, right, use 4 filters when it comes to words. The first filter, is it true? Second filter, is it loving? Third filter, is it necessary? And fourth filter, is it an improvement on silence? I think I love the fourth filter, because that's what actually gets us into trouble. Oftentimes, silence will never get us into trouble. It is only when we open our mouth, and in fact, guess what I am doing right now? I'm getting myself into big trouble. So ideally, we should just be shutting up, right? So that's the importance of words. Let's move on to actions. How important are actions? And so I recollect one of my interactions with Bhagwan. It was when I was in my MBA, and it was my first interaction, in fact, with Swami in MBA, during MBA. And Swami was just generally asking, so he knew that I've come from Brindavan Sevadal, so he used to call me Bangalore boy. So he used to talk to me in Kannada, and though I stayed in Bangalore for 6 years, my Kannada was horrible, but I could understand Kannada. And of course, so Swami was talking to me in Kannada. And it so happened that while this conversation is going on, there is one fly which is creating a mess for me. It was like sitting all over, like first of all, I'm sweating, and so it was sitting all over, and I was like, wiping that fly off for my face. And as Swami is talking, so my hands are like this, and then I'm, kind of shooing away the fly. And as this is happening, Swami suddenly stops and he says, I can never forget. He says, Swami says like that. And then in Kannada he said, ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ fly. Now, I don't know, I don't remember the exact Kannada words, but I can tell you the translations. And a small fly is able to agitate you so much, is it? Swami is asking me. A small fly is able to agitate you so much, is it? That much dehabhimanam you are having? Okay, and I was like blown away. Okay, because this was absolutely out of the blue. In fact, it has stayed in my heart so much, it is etched in my heart so much, because ever since that time, even now to this day, this evening also, every time a fly comes and sits on my face, or while we're singing bhajans especially, it reminds me of that moment. where for Swami, he was giving this, this ultimate lesson of how much body consciousness we have, right? Do we actually pay attention to the actions that we are doing? A small little fly or mosquito is enough to agitate, the absolute heaven out of us, right? It does not allow us to do any work. And in fact, I remember after this happened, I came back and sat, and then the monkey mind that we all have, especially Sai students, I would say. Um, I was saying, Swami, very easy for you. Whenever you sit on the throne, there's always a fan next to you. We don't have a fan next to us. So obviously, we have to serve ourselves. And you will not believe it. After that, I literally tried to catch Swami, kind of, let me see whether he ever swats a fly away. And it was incredible because I never saw Swami swatting a fly away, though number of occasions I saw Swami, a fly sitting on Bhagwan. Right? I'm sure you will also notice, please do notice in videos that even if a fly sits on Swami's cheek or Swami's nose or Swami's ear, Swami never swats a fly away. Okay, of course, oftentimes then we give interpretations. It must be some Maharshi who has come and sat on Bhagwan and all of that. But we know how irritating it can be when a fly sits. But that was the lack of body conscious. That was the kind of control that Swami had. And this reminds me of one other occasion. We were in Vrindavan, and it was one of those festivals, either Ugadi or Ramanami, I'm not sure. And so there were lots of flower vases, kind of around the Shanti Vedika in Sai Ramesh Hall. And Swami had come, he was sitting on his throne, on top of the Shanti Vedika. And because there were so many flowers around, obviously there were lots of bees around. Okay. And whoever had organized it, we had not kind of been sensitive enough to kind of figure out that don't keep those flowers so close to Bhagwan, because bees would be around Swami, right? And I remember very, very vividly, there was this huge black bumblebee. Okay, that starts to make its rounds, on the stage. And literally our hearts were in our mouth, because like, what will happen if that bumblebee sits on Swami, right? It will sting Swami. Okay, and I remember looking on my right hand side, because Narahari sir and Ravi Kumar sir would be sitting there, and everybody had noticed that Narahari sir was like, waiting to kind of one a signal, half a signal from Bhagwan, and that would have been the end of that bumblebee for next 10 janmas. He would have just gone and swatted the life out of that. So he was just waiting. And the most incredible scene was, Swami was sitting like this in his beautiful posture, and that bumblebee, it comes and it starts to revolve around Swami's hand, and all of us are like, oh my God. And Swami doesn't bat an eyelid. His eyes are open, and it was so loud, dear brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, we could hear the buzz of the bumblebee. We could hear literally the buzz from where we were sitting in the first row. It did not move Swami at all. It was one of the most incredible, means as innocuous as this incident kind of feels, to me, I still remember it to this day. That was the lack of body consciousness that Swami was in at all times. It was from that perspective that every action of his was coming. I think there is a little lesson for us in all of that. How much importance do we really give to this body? And the more and more we are able to kind of step back from this body consciousness, automatically it will start reflecting in our actions. So that is something that I wanted to share with you on actions. Let's move on to the next, the thoughts. And this is another beautiful incident that happened with one of our old students, one of our alumnus. So once again, I'll tell you his name because he's not unknown to all of us. This happened to brother Indreshwar, Gopal Indreshwar, who was the grandson of one of the most loveliest and dearest devotees of Bhagwan, the Rajmata. So he was telling us this, that of course he comes from a very, very wealthy family, right? A huge estate and huge businesses to look after. And he was saying that when he was in his MBA, either the first year or the second year, um, everything in their family was directly guided by Swami. Literally, the pet that they were going to buy, the flower vase that was to be put in their house, everything was decided by Swami. And there was one accountant who was looking after all of their, kind of their estate, and all of their wealth was looked after by this accountant. And this accountant ended up being, a rogue, and he cheated them of hundreds of, crores of rupees. And um, and it literally sent shock waves through the family, because Swami was there. Swami knew this accountant. This accountant was also well versed with his entire family and with Swami, and in spite of that, he did what he did. And so there was tremendous amount of angst in their minds, in his mind. And he was in the hostel, so he couldn't, kind of go and do anything about it. So, he would sit, he was telling us that he would sit in the veranda, and when Swami would go into the interview room, he would close his eyes, and mentally he would, kind of, he would be beating the hell out of this accountant. Like, all the kind of, how could you do this? You cheat, you rogue, all of that, the negative, that viciousness was being targeted towards this, towards this accountant. And Brother Indreshu says that one day he was sitting, and the same mental boxing was going on, and suddenly the interview room door kind of just bangs open, and Swami kind of thunders out of the interview room, and Swami comes up to him and says, "Hey, kya kar raha hai Indreshwar?" Okay, and he's kind of just, he's kind of woken up out of like a from a bolt from the blue. It hits him, and he says, "Swami, nothing, Swami. I'm not like." He thought, he was just sitting over there, closing his eyes. For the rest of the world, he was, in a meditative kind of a mood. And Swami comes and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Swami, nothing, Swami. I didn't do. I'm sitting over here." And then Swami says, "Come inside." And Swami calls him inside. And Swami says, "What are you doing?" And at that moment, all of that was which was there inside his heart, kind of, he said it just kind of, the dam burst. And he started telling Swami, "You knew, right? You knew about this person. Why did you allow this to happen? Right? How could you allow this to happen?" And he started pouring out, and he was so agitated, he started weeping. And then Swami kind of pats him and consoles him and says, "But what you are doing, how is it different from what he did? Right? It is exactly what you are doing, and what he did is absolutely one and the same. It is no different." So he said, "Swami, how can you even say that? Like, I'm just doing something mentally, Swami. Like, whatever, viciousness that I'm throwing towards him is mental." And Swami says, "No, you are thinking. You have no idea about the energy of our thoughts. You have no idea that, he has cheated, or he may have done something bad to you, to your family, only once. But by you kind of punching him, and doing whatever you wanted, you have killed him 100 times. You have taken on the sin that he, 100 times more." And so then he humbly submitted to Swami. He said, "Swami, how are we to, like, how can we control our mind? How to get rid of this thought?" And then Swami gave him a very beautiful technique, which is very useful to all of us. Swami said, "Every time you think of him," and now here is the technique for us. Every time we think of someone whom we do not like, or whom, who has done something really bad to us, or in whose presence only negative energy comes, Swami told, "You just picturize yourself holding a baby, right? When you have a baby in your hand, and that baby smiles back at you, there cannot be any negative thought at all, right? The smile of a baby is full of positive energy. So picturize the smile of a baby." How simple and practical and day to day is this technique for us to control our thoughts, right? So the point that I wanted to kind of share with you all is, our thoughts are so incredibly powerful. We don't realize that. In fact, today there is a humongously large amount of research going on. In fact, not just today, for the last 25 years. In fact, let me share with you one research that was being done, I think, in the Carnegie Institute. What they did was, They wanted to see the power of thoughts, and they literally kind of, this EEG, the electroencephalograph, is something that, you connect to all of those nerves, all of those wires to the brain, and then they actually see the brain activity. So they connected one of the top athletes, an Olympic athlete, to this EEG. And what they did was they simulated the entire, like how he would be in a ground and he would be on his marks, right? They kind of put all those sounds of a packed stadium, kind of shouting, okay? And they told him, now you mentally run this race, okay? And so, on your mark, get set, right? And he kind of and then the kind of the going off of the pistol, and they start to kind of see what is his brain activity. And they found absolutely incredibly that just by simulating what was happening in the ground, all the muscles that were necessary to actually run, the thigh muscles and the arm muscles, they actually started firing. There were electric impulses that were going from the brain to all of these muscles saying, come on, run now. This man is stationary. He is actually not running. But just the thought, just the simulation of that kind of a situation created this kind of actual movement of muscles. That is the power of thoughts. They are incredibly powerful because they can actually make things happen. And here is Swami telling us, think that you are the Lord, think that you are God. Dust if you think, dust you become. God if you think, God you become. So that is the importance of watching our thoughts. Let's move on to character. I once again I'm recollecting the story of the young Swami. And the reason why I say this is not many of us reflect on the early life of Bhagwan. For us, Swami was always this, absolutely impeccable character, this impeccable personality. You would never see a crease on Bhagwan's robe. You would not even see a crease on Swami's robe, and he would be running all across and still, and of course, you think, oh, anyway, he's God, he can do whatever he wants. But no, if one were to in fact read the Satyam Shivam Sundaram, you can see the incredible hardships that Swami himself faced, even while being God. And that is why I want to refer to two instances from Swami's childhood, which talks about his character. And somehow, I don't know why, but it has kind of deeply resonated. These two instances have deeply resonated with me. The first instance is, when Swami talks about the Pushpagiri fair. He back in the day, all his, he was called Satyam. He was the guru amongst all his classmates. We all know the story of that one time there was this cattle fair in Pushpagiri, and he was a scout boy. And so all the scout boys were asked to kind of go over to the fair and help over there, as volunteers. And everybody told Satyam, you have to come, you have to come. And Satyam knew that he cannot afford that bus ride. He cannot afford that bus ride from Uravakonda to Pushpagiri. Right? And Swami said, but all my friends had told me that you have to be there, including the PT teacher had told Satyam, you must be there because, we look forward to your leadership. And Swami says, I walked through the night. It just feels like, I don't know, I get a little emotional when I think about this, a little Satya walking through the night, just to make his friends happy. And Swami goes on to tell in that discourse that I never wanted anyone else to know what was the monetary condition at home. That I did not want others to know that I could not afford this bus ticket. So I gave them another excuse. Okay. But I quietly walked through the night because I knew that I cannot ask my brother, to pay for, the ticket. I mean, how sensitive is that? How often, on the contrary, do we go about telling all our problems, our ghar ki baat, whatever is there, whether they are really problems or not, we go about advertising them all over, especially in this day of Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's nothing left, in fact, right? whatever घर पे हो जाता है वो सब public को पूरा broadcast हो जाता है. You know, we are like each one of us have become like BBCs, you know, British Broadcasting Corporation. You know, and you know, and that is where the faulties, the frailties of our human character are seen, right? And Swami says that he did not want his, you know, he did not want his friends to know what is his condition. So that's story number one. The other story that I wanted to tell you from Swami's thing is in from Uravkonda only. You know, it was a time when Swami had to walk almost like 3 kilometers one side and 3 kilometers other side to bring water, one for drinking water and one from. And the reason is we went to Uravkonda and we saw both those wells. You know, because Uravkonda is not too far from Prashanti. It is about 2.5 hours drive. It's a beautiful drive, in fact. It's a little past Anantapur. And so we wanted to go back and we wanted to relive that because that was the place from where, you know, the mission kind of exploded, right? From Uravkonda, where he sang the Manasa Bhajare. So I've been to Uravkonda 3-4 times now. And every time we go there, you know, we kind of try to relive how Swami must have walked from his school, where he must have gone. And so we literally tried and tracked those two, you know, wells from which Swami, in fact, would bring water to his house. And just imagine a little boy of 12, 13 carrying pitchers of water back home. And so, you know, Swami says that it had created these black marks on my shoulders. And it was a time when his Swami's sister-in-law was, you know, in the family way. And so Mother Ishwarama and Pedavengamaraju had come to Uravkonda. And one day after bath, they noticed, you know, these really dark black and blue marks on Swami's shoulder. And they ask Satya, why is this? What is the, you know, how come you're having this? And Swami just says, no, nothing, you know, this is, I just go and bring water. And they're shocked because, like, why will a little child be asked to do this? You know, Shishamaraju, I mean, his elder brother was a, you know, fairly well-to-do in the sense he was a fairly respected teacher in the school. And so, you know, probably anybody else could have done this, but asking Satya to bring water. And, you know, Swami tells that Mother Ishwarama was very, very perturbed. And so the day they were leaving back to Parthi, Ishwarama and Pedavenkaparaju, they tell Satya, you come along with us. Come, you don't stay here. We can't see you being, you know, treated like this. And you know what Swami says? This is something which, you know, I love so much. Swami says, no, Amma, this is not the right time to come. See, the sister-in-law is in the family way. If all of us leave, no, everybody else will get to know that something is wrong. That is why Satya also left. So you go now, I will come after some days. I'm like, Swami, you know, how sensitive is this? Look at the sensitivity of Swami, that what will other people think about what is the condition at home? Right? I think there's so much of learning from every episode of Bhagwan's life, and that is why I urge you all to read Satyam Shivam Sundaram deep, especially the part one, you know, his childhood, because it is not, you know, it's not been a bed of roses, it's not been a cakewalk for Swami, right? So these are the you know, little lessons that we can learn from the character of Swami. And finally, let's come to the heart. And for the heart, I would like to you know, tell this. We will do one exercise because without actual practical, you know, practical lessons, this discussion on watch will not be over. But even before we go into this exercise, let me tell you this beautiful instance that happened, I think in the year 2000 or 2001. The Delhi the old students from Delhi. So 99 Swami had visited Delhi. So after that, you know, Delhi was in form for a few years. So anybody who would come from Delhi would typically, you know, get a lot of interaction with Swami. So all the old students from Delhi had come to Prashanti, and Swami called them for an interview. And one of the boys, you know, he had, I would say, he took the liberty of asking Swami this question. He said, Swami, while we are here in Prashanti Nilayam, no, we are, you know, we cannot forget you. You're constantly, you know, we kind of know your presence, we feel your presence. But when we go back to Delhi, Swami, we can't feel your presence. Okay, so this was, I thought it was a pretty gutsy question to ask Swami. Like, we don't feel your presence to ask Swami. But I think it came from a pure heart. And so his question was, Swami, and I'm sure this question is with all of us, right? When we are in Prashanti, we feel that oneness with Swami and we are completely plugged in, right? And then we go back to Mumbai. I'm guessing most of you are from Mumbai. So we go back to Mumbai and then we kind of don't feel that plug in, right? We kind of feel plugged out, and it takes enormous amount of effort to kind of plug in ourselves. So this was the question, Swami, we don't feel your presence when we go back to Delhi. And you know what was Swami's answer? Swami's answer is one of the best, like it's the most profound of answers. Swami said, so the question was, Swami, in Delhi, we don't feel your presence. Swami's answer was, in Delhi, do you feel your presence? Okay. Now, you may think that this is a play of words. But dear brothers and sisters, let's contemplate on what Swami has said. In Delhi, in Prashanti, we feel Swami's presence. Swami is asking us, in Mumbai, do you feel your own presence? What do we mean by this presence? So, in one sense, presence refers to thoughts. What is our presence? We are represented by our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. So that is one part of it. But just think about it a little deeper. What is that place from which our thoughts, our words, and our actions are coming? That is our true presence, isn't it? Like, for example, when we go to a movie, it is that one screen on which all the movies are coming, right? If that screen doesn't exist, there are no movies at all. On the same screen, you will have a tragedy, you will have a comedy, you will have action, you will have frustration, you will have villain winning, you will have heroes winning. But the one screen is untouched by whatever is being projected, and yet it is only because of the screen that the movie can be seen. Similarly, all the situations that we are facing in our life is happening on that one screen, which is our true presence. Every good word, every good thought, every good deed, every not so good deed, every not so good thought are happening because of that one presence that is all the time there within us. And that is the screen of our hearts. And that it is in that presence that Swami is asking, are you watching that presence of yours? So, if we think that no, Swami, I don't feel your presence, and Swami is telling us, do you feel your own presence? I will request you all to just close your eyes for the next 10 seconds. I promise it's not, this exercise, I promise you, will be a pretty life changing one. So close your eyes, and in the beginning, just watch the inhalation and the exhalation. Merely watch. Don't judge. Don't analyze. Merely watch. Inhale, exhale. And while you do this, your eyes are closed, your mouth is closed, but your ears are open. And so merely listen to all the sounds that are around you. Listen closely. Pay attention to all the noises and the sounds that are around you. Do not judge those sounds. Do not analyze those sounds. Just listen to the sounds. It could be the horn of some vehicles. It could be the motor of the fan that is running in your rooms. It could be the wafting of air from the air conditioning. All I am saying is to pay attention to the sound. The mind will feel like analyzing the sound. Do not analyze, just listen. As you pay attention, you will notice your heart is beating. You will be able to hear your heartbeat. Sairam, tell me how you felt right now. I am sure that you were acknowledging your own presence. We did not do anything spectacular. We simply were in this moment right now without a sense of judgment. See, this is what happens. In fact, when I practice this, oftentimes, you hear a sound and then you wonder, Are kya? Sometimes it's just the dropping of some tap in the house is kind of leaking. And so here that tap, 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 and then you think, oh God, that tap has to be repaired. Abhi wo plumber kahan se aayega? You see, our mind will start going in the direction. What we need to do is, no, 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 come back, come back. Just listen, boss. Just listen to the dropping of the droplet. Don't analyze, don't judge. All we are doing is we are watching. We are merely watching, acknowledging our own presence. I'm sure that many of you, in that moment, you would have felt that kind of calm and peace. That peace is a window into your true reality. And that true reality is nothing but Bhagwan's presence in our lives. That is God, right? So, this is what I wanted to share with you today, that we have this ability to watch our own selves. And once we are able to use this formula of watch in our own lives, believe me, our lives will never be the same again. They will be profoundly, profoundly elevating. It will be metamorphic, the transformation in our lives. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all. Jai Sai Ram.
Sairam, brother, thank you for these wonderful words and literally taken us back to Parthi, shown us those beautiful days. We've been there, seen it, heard it, experienced it. Thank you for reliving it and getting that connect to Swami once again. Uh, this practical exercise was absolutely wonderful. Uh, this is something that we practice on Sunday mornings as part of our Seva Sadhana, where there is a Jyoti meditation that happens. It's an activity that you had undertaken, and we've done that, and the same experience going through it again is absolutely beautiful. And thank you for explaining these words beautifully in Swami's own words. So it was Swami speaking through you. The subject was chosen by Swami, and the words also are from Swami. So thank you for this wonderful experience and taking us through those beautiful days. There are a few questions coming through, and I would like to request you to maybe answer those questions. Uh, okay, so there's a question that's come through. How to control the monkey mind and elevate it from negativity?
So that's exactly what we kind of try to do. First of all, believe the fact that we can control the mind, right? If we allow the mind to control us, then it's a lost battle. What we have to kind of have that faith in our own sadhana, first and foremost, is to know that yes, I can control my mind. And I would say take short, small steps. As Bhagwan says, no, you take one step towards me, I will take the 100 steps. So all we need to do is to kind of resolve, be committed to the fact that Swami, you know what, from today I will not. And so let me share a simple thing that that you can do, especially with negative thoughts. So keep small challenges. As I was saying, periodic integrated awareness. So what I believe, and this is, I mean, don't quote me, or I would say is that this is my hypothesis. This is my model. Is that if we are able to stretch our periodicity, like our periodic integrated, if we are able to stretch those periods, eventually we will become constant integrated awareness. So take any one day in a week, let's say a Thursday or let's say a Sunday, and try and practice for 1 hour in one of those days that Swami, in this next 1 hour, I am not going to think any negative thought. If you think 1 hour is too much, you could just start with 10 minutes. Swami, 10 minutes, I am not going to think negative about anything, about anybody. Okay, so just start with that. And I can tell you from my personal experience that what happens, because now you have to prepare for those 10 minutes, because those 10 minutes are really sacrosanct, right? They are non-negotiable. Come what may, whatever situation you are in, you have to kind of practice that. That's why you pick and choose a time of your suitability, other than of course your sleep times. मतलब ऐसा मत बोलो यार, anyway मैं रात को deep sleep में जाता हूँ. Okay, you're kind of just fooling yourself, you're kidding with yourself. So pick and choose a time. I would say Thursdays, because Thursday is Bhagwan's days, right? So it's also, it's a nice way for kind of offering that as a little offering from ourselves to Swami on Gurvar. So Gurvar के दिन kind of decide कि 6 घंटा, 1 घंटा, 10 मिनट जो भी है, I will not think anything negative. So what happens is you start preparing for that 10 minutes, right? So you start preparing some half an hour before. So from half an hour itself, that sadhana has started. And after 10 minutes, it kind of lingers on for some more time, because it's actually a very beautiful, the outcome of that is so beautiful that you say, Are yaar, and once you get success, that success breeds more success. Right? So you feel confident that, hey, you know what, I was able to do that for 10 minutes. So now let me do it for 20 minutes. So you're stretching that period of, that's what I said, stretching the periodicity of integrated awareness, right? And slowly we are able to stretch, right? And eventually we will reach that. So I think this is one technique that I can possibly share with you all.
Thank you for that wonderful response. There are a couple of questions sort of interrelated. Job performance pressure, it's there, everyone faces it. You're supposed to perform under pressure, and there are a lot of things that go through. Some of them may not be in accordance with Swami's teaching. How do you deal with it in your job workplace?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we all face. Believe me, even Prashanthi Nilayam, we face that. So the one thing that I always tell myself is, my boss is Bhagwan, right? Everybody else is somebody who has been deputed by Swami to play that role. So once I believe that whoever is there, whether I'm supposed to report to someone or someone is causing problems, I know if we have this belief that अरे यार ये भगवान का उसी का ये सब game है, and the whole idea is to play the game. That's why Swami says life is a game, play it. right? Because he wants us to have this game with Swami. Okay, you know what, Swami, you're putting this challenge for me. Chal, I'll try to do well. And yeah, we'll probably fail in most of our games, right? But I mean, so what? I mean, who has ever won every single game in his, in their lives? I mean, not even the greatest of the great sportsmen, or for that matter, the greatest of the great personalities have not won everything in their life, right? So we will lose some, but we will win some, right? And it is that winning which kind of then slowly becomes a habit. And so I believe that constantly telling ourselves that this is a challenge that Swami has put in, for me. It's not that person. He is merely representing. In fact, this is something that one of our sirs had used to tell us, that Swami will never give us a challenge that we cannot overcome, right? If a challenge has come in our life, it's because we can overcome it, right? So if we can believe in that no challenge is too big for us, because we have our Swami with us. So if we constantly look at every challenge like that, I think our life will be a little bit easier. And I can tell you one more thing, and this is from a Vedantic perspective. So kind of don't get, oh my God, um, when we go through a moment of anger, or we go through a moment of frustration or depression, or whatever you may call it, I don't want to call clinical depression, because that's a medical state. A lot of times when we have used words like depression, we have had people coming up to us and say, brother, you have no idea what depression is. And yes, I humbly submit, I don't know what depression is, right? And I completely empathize with those people who go through this clinical depression. But if we are having those moments, those dull moments in our life, just think, especially anger, when we get angry, for a moment, just think about that. We are actually aware of our anger, right? I am angry means I am aware of my anger. I am not angry because I am Amey Deshpande, right? When did my name change to angry? So we often say I am angry. No, I am not angry. I am Amey Deshpande who is experiencing anger, right? So just kind of put yourself away from that and say, oh, so I am only the witness. Once again, I am watching my anger, right? I am not angry, I am watching my anger. And the moment you have this, I have tried it out, it actually brings a smile on your face. You're like, are yaar, kya pagalpanti hai? Because we are only watching our anger, we are not angry. So try doing this every time you probably get frustrated. You are not frustrated, you are the knower of your frustration, you are the watcher of your frustration, you are different from your frustration, right? Immediately it brings a smile on our face. theek hai, you know what, passing clouds, passing clouds, passing clouds. It becomes like that.
Yeah. So there's another question that's come through. H, WATCH, H, heart. That's perhaps the most important element in that. How do you purify your heart?
Yeah. So Swami says purification of heart. In fact, not just Swami, but all the greatest of the masters. And this is something that you will constantly hear. Chitta Shuddhi can happen only through service, through seva. And believe me, this is not the normal Narayan Seva that we are talking about. If every act of ours can come from a place of seva, and for seva, the most important element for seva is the feeling of dasoham. See, हम लोग जब सेवा करते हैं ना, जब when we say सेवा, हम लोग when we say seva, we always do it for a person above us. We don't serve somebody below us, right? We always serve. For example, in our office, we are serving our organization. At घर पे, we are serving our parents, we are serving our elders, right? तो हम उनकी सेवा करते हैं, हम भगवान की सेवा करते हैं. We don't say मैं अपनी पेट की सेवा कर रहा हूं. अब घर पे जो कुत्ता होता है वो हमारी सेवा करता है, हम उसकी सेवा नहीं करते, isn't it? I mean, typically in the parlance that we are talking about. Similarly, when we go to a temple and you have these number of sevas, right? You have this Tomala seva and you have this Kirtana seva. So if you look at it, seva is actually an act which is done for someone above us. Now imagine if every act of ours becomes a seva, right? Which means whoever we are serving, even if it is that Narayana who is sitting on the road, if we believe that we are truly doing seva, That means he is above and we are below, right? The moment this feeling of dasoham comes, Swami, मैं कुछ भी नहीं हूँ, Swami, मैं तो servant हूँ, मैं आपका servant हूँ. That feeling, once it comes, no, dasoham, 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 automatically you will notice there is no time to judge, right? There's no time to kind of think what wrong that person has done, because I am serving that person. That person doesn't do wrong. Only कोई only क्या बोलते हैं उसको, सर्वेंट को क्या सिर्फ चेले गलत हो सकते हैं, भगवान कभी गलत नहीं हो सकता, राइट? तो सिर्फ हम लोग गलत हो सकते हैं, भगवान कभी गलत नहीं हो सकता. तो ऑटोमेटिकली आवर माइंड गेट्स प्यूरिफाइड. So this is what this is a simple way in which we can kind of purify. Look at every action, whether it's bhajans, whether in the organization, at home, everything is a seva that we do.
Absolutely beautifully explained, Amey. There's another interesting question that has come up. We tend to confuse being good to others with the habit of pleasing everyone, but that may necessarily not be in your spiritual path. It may be, on the contrary, taking in the opposite direction. We try to be good to people and we try to please them, but that's not exactly helping your spiritual progress. How do you deal with that?
No. So do not confuse being good with everyone as the same as pleasing everyone. See, we are here only to please Bhagwan. Sarva karma bhagavad prityartham. Nowhere in any of our shastras it has been told sarva karma jagat prityartham. Right? We are not here to please the world, and it is impossible to please the world. It's absolutely next to impossible. I mean, it is, if there's one thing which is impossible, it is that, right? So we are here only to please Bhagwan. But pleasing Bhagwan doesn't mean that I will be bad to everyone else. My idea is to see Swami in everyone else, right? So the idea is, please Swami, be assertive where you have to stand for your principles. Be assertive, but you can always be civil, right? You don't have to be an animal to convey our point. You can always be civil. And believe me, I will tell you one thing I have seen in my own experience. For example, I can tell you one brother. That brother was like butter. He was my junior. Like हम लोग बोलते थे, यार ये कहाँ से पंडित आ गया. We used to call, Jaishankar will surely, Sant Pandu we used to call. Like, these Spiru guys. There were these guys who were Spiru. Okay, and there was this brother who was so Spiru, he was so Sant Pandu, right? That I always used to wonder, यार इसका क्या होने वाला है जिंदगी में, मतलब दुनिया इसको फाड़ के फेंक देगी. Because he is such a soft and wonderful guy, never talks, never raises his voice. यार ये बाहर के जग में जाएगा तो यार दुनिया इसको खा जाएगी. This is my thought. Believe me, today this guy is one of the most successful persons, right? He is absolutely untouched by the world. And I can't imagine this guy standing up to someone, but I have seen him kind of, when it comes to standing up for what he believes in, he just comes and he says, no brother, this is not the way it will be done. And just the power of his goodness, you kind of, this has happened even during our time. And we were recording. He was a fantastic mridangam player, and so we were recording and something was not going well, and he just came and said, no brother, I don't think it should happen this way, I think it should happen this way, with a smile on his face. And we were like, what? And the power of his word was such that at the same time all of us said, हाँ यार वो वैसे ही करेंगे, ऐसे नहीं करेंगे. Because if this brother can come and give us feedback and he's telling us that it should not be done, यार तो फिर तो कुछ बहुत ज्यादा गलत हो रहा है. That's the power of goodness. So I would say that don't confuse pleasing the world with being good to the world. Being good to the world is something that should be our nature, which is what Swami says, love all, right? When Swami says love all, oftentimes we misinterpret it as all should love us. Okay. Bhagwan is in fact telling us love all, right? But that doesn't mean please everyone, right? So I'll leave it at that. Of course, we can go ahead and keep talking about it.
Absolutely. Explained it perfectly, Amey. Another question that's come through. Many times in anguish, what happens is, like you said, there is only one output, that is your mouth. The anguish comes out through your words. It hurts the other person. So is there a repentance, or how can we make the other person forgive or forget what's happened? So yeah, the first thing is to obviously not watch our words, but then it does come out. We do let it out. So is there a repentance for what we have already done?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think genuinely just being truthful and going and genuinely from our heart when we do Prayashchittam, it definitely has an impact, right? When we go and अरे यार हम लोग भगवान से कितनी बार क्षमा मांगते हैं, right? And भगवान हम सबको क्षमा कर देता है. So, I think um, definitely, I mean, the solution lies in the very word called repentance. Just genuinely go and tell the person, I'm sorry, and assure him or her that we will not repeat it, and just be genuine about it. And see, this is where I feel like you may think, okay, they are just words, but don't let them be words because they're coming from our heart, right? And when something comes from the heart, it's absolutely genuine. Yeah. So
Perfect answer, Amey. And one thing we've seen in this session today is that good answers always evokes more questions. So we are having lots of more questions, Amey. So there are lots of questions being asked. So some of the answers we know, but I think explaining
I
it
yeah,
in,
can I just say one thing at this point is, dear brothers and sisters, the answers lie within ourselves, right? All we need to do is to pay attention, right? Not tension, attention, right? To the one who's seated inside. And that is what I tried. That's what we tried to achieve through this exercise that we did. We don't, as Swami said, no, in Delhi, mein, do you feel your presence? We have forgotten our presence, the ultimate presence. So the more and more we kind of, watch our own presence and pay attention to our own presence, I think the solution just lies there. Anyway, yeah, whenever you want to call it a day.
so it doesn't look like it's going to be anytime soon, but yeah, all good things do come to an end, and everything taken in good measure it always lasts for a lifetime. Swami says everything should be taken in the right measure. So this session has been like that sweet that we have eaten, and the right quantity stays with us. Too much, and you tend to forget. So on behalf of all of us, am I here? Our heartfelt gratitude to you for
No,
taking
I think we
time
should
out.
pay our gratitude to Bhagwan for being our hero, our master, our Lord. Yeah, that's all I can say.
So
Let's not show gratitude to each other. Let's just be absolutely grateful to Swami.
So you are the master's voice today. So Swami sends his messengers in different forms. We merely try to connect the speaker or Swami with whoever the devotees are, and our endeavor is that even if one question or any doubt in the minds of devotees are answered, I think that session is successful. The thought that we go out in this session, and the memory of Swami, or whatever good words that are said, if that can be put into action, I think nothing like that. And that's what our endeavor is through these sessions. So our heartfelt gratitude to you, all the devotees here. As I can see, the devotees are not only from Mumbai, there are devotees from Darjeeling, there are devotees from Malaysia, Singapore, who are there in this session. So on behalf of all of the devotees worldwide, our gratitude to you, and the amazing service that you're doing by spreading Swami's message. And we hear your voice day in and day out, uh, through tough times, through the thick and thin of what's the COVID situation that is going around. You've been singing bhajans. All of our brothers in Prashanti Nilayam have been doing amazing service. uh, People log into mandir bhajans at 9 o'clock, and it's as though there is a whole ensemble there. But we know that there are a lot of our brothers who are affected by COVID. You take turns, bhajans are being done, and it brings a lot of joy and solace to all the devotees worldwide who log in and listen to the sessions. It's like being at Prashanti Nilayam in person. So thank you for that. And then again, our gratitude to Swami for sending you here and speak his words through you today. So our gratitude to you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again. I wish you all a very, very happy festive season and lots and lots of Bhagwan's grace and for very, very good health. Let's all pray for the entire world. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Sai Ram.
We will end today's session with Samastaloka. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय. Thank you, Sai Ram.